Family history in Chicago, it wasn't the worst and it wasn't the greatest, you know, it was the in between, you know, it wasn't as bad as it's been lately. You know, I think the times have definitely changed. And when I was growing up, where some things wouldn't happen, you know, and where the community stuck together and everybody raised the kids, it's kind of just went downhill and it's just totally divided now. But my family was great. Like I can't really complain too much unless I complain about the punishment, you know. But I was a knucklehead, so it was probably justified. But no, it was great. Like I had one of the greatest family experiences. Only thing that I probably missed out of my childhood growing up in Chicago most was my mom. My father raised me, you know, and it was kind of difficult growing up, and sometimes it's still kind of a touchy situation, but I can't complain. I had the greatest support system ever. My stepmom, she practically raised me from the age of 5. So it was definitely a beautiful thing.
Some brothers and sisters?
Oh, I have a younger brother and a younger sister. My youngest brother just made 28 on Valentine's Day. And
Okay.
my little sister, she's 19 now, and she's off in school herself. So.
Okay, so sisters in school. What does your brother do?
He was in school, but he's a full-time employee and he's taking care of his daughter.
That's good. Would you like to, I get you to evaluate on the neighborhood, specifically on where it was then and where it is now?
My neighborhood then, it was when I was growing up, we were able to go outside, be carefree, and not too much worry about anything happening, especially in the area that we were in. It wasn't a suburban area, it was just a common middle-class neighborhood, you know? So it was, I mean, we had areas that was like Lion King, don't go there, you know? But it was, at that point in time, growing up in Chicago, in that area, it was definitely one of those time periods where you could be carefree. Like I said, everybody looked out for each other, and mostly everybody in the neighborhood knew me because my father is real known in Chicago. So it's like, yeah, everybody looked out for each other. Versus now, it's deserted. It's a lot of different avenues of gang activity. Well, it was always gang activity, but I think it's a lot worse now because a lot of different places were torn down for various reasons. So you had to incorporate different people from different gangs and everything, and it just, yeah. So it's still that particular neighborhood is still a nice place, but it's just the crime is just at an all-time high.
How was school growing up?
School, school for me. When I say I was a knucklehead, I was definitely a knucklehead. Like, my father was very active in the school. He was a coach. He was a father figure to some of my classmates. But then you had me, knowing that my father was always gonna be there or they were gonna always call my father, and I still found a way to get myself in some form of trouble. So, I mean, but like I said, it was great.
Well, all right, and your upbringing, I want to talk about some of the role models that you had coming up,
Yeah.
some of your influences.
Off top, my father, definitely. I didn't appreciate it when I was growing up because it was like, oh man, you was being a butthole. No, but now that I'm older and I look at some of the things that he did or some of the things that he's done for other people, it was just like, I inspired to be like that. And then second would be my cousin Antoine, God rest his soul. I definitely, I always wanted to be like Antoine. Antoine was the man. From the ladies to sports to video games, it's like he was everything in one. He was definitely my go-to when I needed to talk to somebody. We had my coach, Mr. Kelsey. He was definitely influential in my life. I also had Officer McKenzie, Mr. Spalding, who was my 8th grade teacher, who looked like Uncle Phil. And he was a little bit meaner than Uncle Phil, like literally. I remember times where I would get in trouble. Instead of him calling my father like everyone else would do, come here. And he would sit me under his desk. Like literally, I had to sit under his desk. And every time I moved, I got a swift kick from that size 12 in my side. So, and it was all welcome because he was pretty much part of the family. So he had all rights to get in my behind when he needed to. Who else can I think of? That was quite a few people. Miss Davis, my speech and drama teacher from high school, she was very influential too. So yeah.
You got a rich culture behind you. So I want to hear how's that shape what's important to you now?
Family is most important to me, and those people that were in my life at that particular time, whether it was for a season or not, they influenced me in a lot of ways, and they probably don't know it because I hardly talk to any of them. Like I talk to my coach, Mr. Kelsey, quite often because him and my father are real close. But yeah, everybody, and there's a lot more that I could mention, but I'm not gonna run down the whole list. But yeah, they're all influential and they help me build who I am today. So
we're gonna get a little bit more present now. What do you like to do now?
Music. Music is definitely, I don't do it, to fit in. I do it to express myself. I started doing it seriously in 2010, and I was going through a real rough patch in my life. And instead of me lashing out or increasing the crime rate, I let all my anger out and all my frustration on a pen and a pad. So I just pretty much anything that I was upset about versus me getting into any kind of altercations, I just felt like this was the most positive way to do it. And doing that, it showed me a lot about myself. It showed me that I'm not what society says that I should be, and me doing that, it started a trickle down effect because my daughters are doing it. And then there's kids that I've come across, they're just like, we aspire to be like that. And it's just, I look at it like, no, don't aspire to be like me. But I shouldn't tell them that because their story really isn't much different from mine. I mean, everybody has a different story, but it's all the same. And if I was able to find a way to get out of it without it being some negative fallback, why not show them that same effect? And that's what I've been doing since 2010.
Okay, awesome. You started to touch on it a little bit. All the people that you described, if you were able to look through their eyes and turn that camera around, how would they describe you?
Of course, they would definitely tell you growing up, I was a knucklehead, but they will also inform you that they are definitely proud of who I become today. And it's a drastic change. And people are still shocked today, like you were something else growing up. So to hear those people say, we're proud of you and keep doing what you're doing is definitely awesome.
That's awesome. So before we get into the story, what's driving you to tell this story?
Out of all the stories that I've had, because I've had the racial profiling go on quite a few times, but this one in particular, I really choose not to talk about because it kind of went left. And I probably should have been a lot smarter in the situation, but nevertheless, there's no reason for anyone to slander you or, just put you in a box and basically say, this is what you are, when it's not who you actually are.
So, can I get you to actually share that story?
Okay. I was working at Wrigley Field in Chicago for the Cubs, and I think they had just lost a big game. So I was actually taking the train home that day, and we got drunk people everywhere. And there was a guy, he was with a group of his friends. And where I was sitting, he kind of wanted my seat. And he saw me get up for a lady, because I had given up another seat for a lady who was pregnant. and she was black, by the way. And there was a white lady. He was like, well, can you give up your seat for her? And I really didn't have a problem with it, because I try to be a gentleman. And I was just like, okay. And then she was like, no, that's okay, I'm fine. So I sat there. He didn't like that. So it became an issue of, who you think you are, Rosa Parks? Strike one. I'm like, okay. I let it go. And everybody's looking like, uh-oh. Like, I had a few friends with me, and they know my temperament. So it was just like, Hefe, don't do it. And I was just like, okay, I'm not gonna say anything. And me ignoring him, well, I really didn't ignore him. I kind of just looked at him and gave him a little snicker, like, all right, man, whatever. You're drunk, I'm not finna pay attention to you. And then he kept going on with the racial jokes. And it was just like, okay, now I need you to stop. You're crossing the line here. And you're talking about something that I hold dear to me, like situations with Rosa, the Malcolm X situations and different things like that. Like, you shouldn't do that. And then he went to put his hands on me. It was like, okay, I could deal with a shoulder nudge. But when he called me a nigger and said that he was better than me because of his skin color, that really kind of set me off. And at that point, once he took a swing, I kind of just took it to a place that it didn't need to go. And he felt like because he had his partners with him, and he, like I said, he was intoxicated. And his partners was just like, what are you doing? So for them to sit back and say, we're not participating in this. This is not what we want to do. Just leave him alone. He's not bothering you. Everything's okay. He didn't like that. I feel like him being in his drunken state really told who he was. And as much as it angered me, it was also saddening because, we should have grown from that by now. But of course, racism's still alive. And it's just, well, it's not even concealed anymore. It's just blatantly out. But I let him drag me to a position to where I could have jeopardized my freedom because I didn't let up on him. I kind of just let it all out. And I felt bad afterwards. Like, once I thought about it, it was just like, why did I do that? But I also, at the same time, I'm a man. And it's one thing to disrespect me or even take a swing at me, but to disrespect my history and just basically try to belittle it, I didn't like it. So yeah, we had a nice little lengthy fight.
Got you. This was in Chicago, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that situation left unresolved?
I can't honestly say from his perspective, but from mine, I don't think it was resolved at all because violence only begets violence. He probably left that situation even more enraged with African American people. And I feel like that was my fault because I engaged, even though he did push me to that point. I could have still just left it alone, but no, I didn't.
Did the authorities show up?
No, and that's the crazy part about it. Nobody showed up. And at the time when they, because he rode to the end of the line just like I did. And of course he was looking for them and nobody showed up. But of course, like I said, my father knows quite a few people. And I left off the train with a swollen wrist. So quite naturally, I had to go get that checked out. And it came up that there was an incident on the train and it was recorded, so it was seen. But it was seen by people that know me and know my father. White cops, black cops. What are you doing? I was defending myself. We know, but why? He swung at me. And this is the white cop talking. The white cop first. And it was just like, well, he swung. Like, what was I supposed to do at that point? So because it was a white man, this is how I'm taking it. Because it was a white man, I was supposed to walk away. Had it been a situation where it was a black on black situation, we wouldn't have been having a conversation. It would have been just lock them up, go away with it. But that's not how it went. And it was just like, I was like kind of young at the time. I think I was, 19, 20, 21, somewhere around in that area. And it was just like, why? And for a while, it kind of had me looking at people of different color like, I can't stand y'all. Y'all all the same. And that's not even true. Because where you have some people of a different color who are, KKK and all this extra good stuff, there you have the other 25% that's like, it's not right. We shouldn't still be doing this. It shouldn't have never happened to begin with. So it didn't take long for me to actually get over it, but it still sits in my mind because I look at every situation now where I feel like I'm being wrong and I'm calling racism. And 9 times out of 10, it may be the issue, but it also may not be the issue. But that's how I'm looking at it. So it's still a strong issue for me. Like, I really kind of just raise my eyebrows at those type of situations because let's just be real, it's not gonna stop. And the only thing we can do as a people is either walk away from it or engage. And 9 times out of 10, if we engage, it doesn't end well for us, as we can see nowadays. So I definitely took that as an experience to say, I need to try to do better. And it also helped me with my temperament a little bit when it comes to people, not just any color, all people. Because let's just be frank, no matter what color you are, anybody can get you to that point, and it's up to you to decide how you handle it. And in that situation, I don't think I handled it the right way. I probably should have just moved to the next train car. But like I said, at that time, I was oblivious to it, so I engaged.
The others around you, like your friends,
Mm-hmm.
your friends were there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How'd they react, and the other people who may have found out about it later on?
The guys that were with me, I think the one that was more upset about it was my friend, Nichelle. She was enraged. And only reason I believe my buddies didn't say anything is because the guy who I actually had the altercation with, his friends were like, no, we're not getting to that, because what he said to me was exactly this, and excuse my French, but you need to get up for me, nigga. I have more power and authority than you do. Get up before I get you up, and me and my friends kick your ass. And his friends were just like, what are you doing? Like, no. And they immediately was like, we're not a part of this. We don't want any parts of it. And my people was just like, okay, move if you want to, because we stick together. Like, we grew up together, so that's just how it goes. Hey, he was just like, no, this is one of them situations, y'all don't have to do anything. They're not trying to do anything. Although I heard some other people on the train that had little smart comments to make, but that's quite naturally. When people from the other end don't really know what's going on and don't know how it started. They just see a black man and a white man. And the first thing they think is that the black man is doing something to the white man. And that's not even the case. Because honestly, I like all people. I don't discriminate. Let's have fun.
How does racism play into this situation here?
I think that man believed, because the way that his parents grew up and the times that they grew up, that it was okay for a situation like that, for a black man to have to get up out of his seat for a white person. And it's just like, dude, what are you doing? Those are not. We're not in the same times anymore.
True. Let's talk about how this impacts you, whether it's physically, emotionally, financially, socially.
For a while, I was really angry because I felt like it shouldn't have happened to begin with. Like I said, I didn't have a problem getting up for that young lady, and I still talk to her, by the way. Like, she's like a good friend now, but she was okay with it. Like, she was like, I'm fine. I don't need to sit down. Because I believe if she would have sat down, there wasn't no getting up. They were ripped. I mean, not to sound racist, but baseball, drinks, you know, that's neither here nor there. But it was, to me, it was something that was racial, because he could have asked anybody else. Like, all my friends are not black. I have a few white friends, and I met them working at Wrigley Field. You could have said the same thing to them, but you came to me because you saw me get up for another black person. It became an issue.
How do you see them now? What changes how you see other people after this experience?
For a while, I was kind of like, how can I say this? I was a bit of a dick for a while after the situation, because I just looked at all different people of color like the same. But then I had to realize that everybody's not the same. That's just like saying you see a man rob a bank, and let's just say he's black, per se. That doesn't mean all black men want to rob banks, you know? And I was looking at all white people the same for a while. It was just like, well, all white people aren't the same. And I should have, at the time, I should have known that, judging by the way his peers responded to the situation. They were actually trying to stop the situation, but he just kept going. And in my mind, it was just like, yeah, this, right, so.
And that kind of goes in like how you deal with others now. How'd you come about telling people, important people in your life? Were you hesitant on telling them?
You know what? Honestly, this is really my first time speaking on this particular situation. Like, I've encountered it quite a few other times, but this one is monumental for me, because, like I said, where I should have just left it alone, I didn't. I engaged in what he wanted me to engage in, which probably led him to believe that the stereotype that he has is we're all the same. Even though I was pushed into the situation, it still probably was in his mind like, yeah, they're all the same.
Okay. Now, you not being able to tell this story, you not telling this story before, this is your first time opening up about this story.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about telling it today?
I feel good. I mean,
like a relief?
Yeah, it's a big relief. I mean, even though I was probably wrong in the situation, it's still a story that needs to be told, because so many different situations happen like this, and a lot of us don't get a chance to tell our story, because once it happens, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to get locked up, and at that point, when the police get involved nowadays, who knows what's going to happen?
Were you in search for some sort of personal satisfaction afterwards?
No, I just looked at it like an everyday situation. I mean,
It was just everyday.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What type of social changes do you think need to be made?
I think we people, and I just say we, because we all, if you cut us all, we bleed the same. We all have the same internal organs. Everything is the same. Only thing is different is the color of our skin. We need to find a way to step outside of the history that was given to us, that was put in these books, because it's not doing us any good on no form. And as you can see in the world today, it's all the same. Like, on one hand, you got this one that thinks they're in the upper echelon, and then on the other hand, you have some of us who don't help the situation because we're living up to those standards that they have put in place for us.
So, let's say you had a chance to sit down with someone who went through the exact same situation. What advice would you give them as far as dealing with that issue?
Don't engage the ignorance. Okay. If it's a situation where the person is being ignorant, don't engage. Because if you engage, that only makes you just as ignorant as them.
What are your views as far as past generations and the generations of today in which they view racism or racial issues?
I don't think the generation of today understands. If they knew firsthand what some of our ancestors went through and what they had to endure just for us to be able to sit here and do things like this, they would not have the attitude that they have.
Are you hopeful?
It's hard, but I am. I do believe that the change will come, but it has to start with us. Like, you have to be the change that you want to see. I mean, you can't change the world, but you can influence it. Set an example. And that's one of the things that my father has always told me, even growing up with my little brother. It's like, he's looking at you. Set the example. Don't show him what not to do, show him what he needs to do. And I kind of took that on through my life. And even when I was coaching, because I coached for a while, and it was just like, okay, I see what my father was saying. Because it's like, they see what you do, and at some point in time, they mimic what you do. And rightfully so, my little brother did the same thing, even though he became his own man and he was able to make his own decisions. I think I set the bar for him, what he shouldn't have done, I'll say that. Because a lot of times, he's seen me get in a lot of trouble, and it definitely was a learning tool for him to say, I'm not doing that. And then there's other times that I set the bar very high and it was like, I want to do that. So, yeah.
What's your faith background?
Non-denominational, but I do believe that all my help comes from the Lord.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, can you relate your faith to this experience?
No, not at all. Because if I would have did that, the situation probably wouldn't have happened.
Okay. Do you believe that faith or the church itself should play a role in addressing racism?
Yes. I believe the church needs to get more influential in all of these situations. Don't just sit back and preach the same sermon every Sunday from the same book. There's things going on in our communities, and we need as many people to get involved, to stand up, to let it be known what's going on. Like, give knowledge. Like, if you know, majority of these pastors and these deacons, everybody, like, they went through something. So if you went through those things and you were able to make it out, you made it out, and you standing there in front of us, why won't you help? Why won't you speak out? I'm not saying get political, but we need more churches to be involved in these situations. Don't just sit back. Sitting back has gotten us nowhere. Marching has really gotten us nowhere. Like, every time something goes wrong, we want to march. Why? What is the march doing? Okay, it's just showing, basically how I look at it, it's just showing that once something goes wrong, you want to show your face to make it seem like you're doing something. I want to see more of the pastors and the churches who don't look for the fame behind it to push themselves to the forefront, not for a camera, but for the people and for themselves. Because as you can see, we're declining. We're dying, like, left and right, whether it's by our own hand or a cop. But if you give us the knowledge that we need, a lot of these situations probably wouldn't even happen.
What type of traditions could be set in stone so that we could address those issues?
We need the people of power, like the pastors and everything else, to step up, be a voice, be a beacon, help. I mean, you ain't always got to go in your pocket to help. Help could be anything, like setting up programs or building community centers and different things like that. Those things help. Like, it helps keep kids off the streets. I don't know, I see it happening sometime soon. I actually want to build a center, not just a place for kids to come play sports. We need more knowledge. We need, like, computers and, like, all this stuff, like, all these things that these kids like doing. Engage in that. Show them how to use it for the benefit of their people, not just to show off and flash money and show guns and just the nonsense. Yeah, set the tone. Because if you're not setting the tone, look what we got. We have nothing. We're losing.